Hello, Kate from FerretTube TV here. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to today's launch book. And it is by Mella May. The title is Tatty Cat and the Wonderful Whiff. And it is a children's picture book. Some ferret-related blurb for you. Mella May's Tatty Cat and the Wonderful Whiff, illustrated by George Utton, uses an animal's sense of smell as its central theme. As any ferret keeper will know, ferrets have a strong sense of smell, and they rely on it heavily to navigate their environment and find food. It is lucky for Tatty Cat that he wasn't up against a ferret on his quest to find the source of a wonderful aroma. But that's not to say he had an easy time of it. The other thing that ferrets are famous for, aroma-wise, is they have a whiff. So I think having a ferret nearby might have actually spoiled the aroma for poor Tatty Cat. Scruffles, come here. Let me whiff you. Come on. No, she's not going to play ball. But I hope that you enjoy today's book launch.
Mella May, Tatty Cat and the Wonderful Whiff. When Tatty Cat and the Wonderful Whiff first landed, I liked it immediately. It wasn't mainstream for us, but we have a small children's list and I could see this would be a good addition. I love the story, but the illustrations didn't do it justice. We told Mella May this and left it with her. Melly went off and found a great illustrator in George Utton who created all the pictures, but this did take time. It was a long while after her initial submission to us that she resubmitted, and because we're a small company and very busy, it was a long while after that before the new version got to the top of the pile for us to look at. But when it did, we got back to Mella to say that we would like to take it on. We heard nothing back and assumed we'd lost it. It happens that people find other homes for their books and we miss out. It's part of the world of publishing. However, many months later, Mella emailed to ask if we'd had time to look at the resubmission. For whatever reason, our email had gone astray, probably directly into a spam folder. It wasn't the first time we've had that problem, and it won't be the last, but thank heaven she decided to check. We were able to retrieve the lost email, and she still wanted to publish with us. And here we are.
So, my name is Jules Tyler, and you and I have known each other for over 40 years, and here we are, just having a chat because you're about to have your book published, which is so exciting. So, just tell me about the book.
Well, the book is called Tatty Cat and the Wonderful Whiff by me, Mella May, and It's all about the adventures of a little cat.
And tell me a bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Northumberland and I've lived in lots of different places. I went to school about 3 miles away from Stonehenge. Then I left school around 18, went to London, worked with the BBC TV Centre, and then eventually settled down here in the Norfolk Broads about 40 years ago. Whenever work allows me to. I like writing, obviously, and being with my family and my animals, pooping around my garden and walking on the beach.
And what was it that actually got you into writing?
I've always enjoyed writing and used to make up little stories for my children when they were little. I just never really had time to do it properly between looking after my family, my mum, and yeah, it's only now that I've really had time to do it properly. So this is my first attempt at getting published, and I think being in your 60s is a good time to start a new career.
It is. So I wanted to know where the inspiration from Tatty Cat actually came from.
It's from my own cats. It's a kind of combination of 2 of my actual real life cats, one of which, no matter how much you try and brush him and groom him, he's just always going to look scruffy and tatty. And the other one, who is a complete adventurer, he's very much an outdoor cat and he takes himself off on all these different adventures. Until recently I had no idea where he was going, and I used to kind of make up where I thought he might go and what he thought he might do, and Tatty Cat is kind of based upon that.
Cool. And have you got any other ideas for Tatty Cat? Anything up and coming, or any new characters that you're going to be writing about?
Plenty of ideas. It's just having the time to actually do it. As I say, between work and family commitments, I don't have that much time, and I work strange and wonderful hours, so I'm constantly out of step with the rest of the world. But I'm hoping to retire in a couple of years and have much more time to do things I actually want to do.
Yeah. I'm sure that'll help.
Yeah.
So we're just going to discuss the journey from the initial idea for the story to you actually getting published.
Yes, it took quite a while from start to finish. The initial idea for Tatty Cat came to me several years ago. Probably took me another year or so to write and rewrite until I was happy with all the wording. The illustrations, however, were another story altogether. I'm not the worst in the world at drawing, but I'm certainly not one of the best either. And my attempts to illustrate Tatty Cat were, say, woefully inept, as was tactfully pointed out when I first submitted the story. Fantastic Books Publishing were kind enough to also send some positive feedback, saying that they did like the story and they would definitely be interested if I could get some more professional illustrations done to go with the text. As it happens, my daughter knows a lovely man called George Utton, who is really rather good at that sort of thing. So George and I met up to discuss the situation, and he kindly agreed to help me out. But he also had several other proper paid jobs going on at the time, and so he said it could take a little while to do, but I was fine with that. There was no rush. Unfortunately, COVID then hit, and we all found ourselves in the middle of a pandemic where a lot of people's priorities changed pretty much overnight, and a lot of projects were just put on hold for a lot longer than anybody had anticipated. So it landed up being just over 2 years later that we finally had our finished result, which I then eagerly resubmitted to Fantastic Books in the hope that they hadn't forgotten me or changed their minds, and waited for their reply, and waited and waited and waited. So after several months of not getting a reply, due, I assumed, to other little mini lockdowns and things we'd had along the way, I decided to email them again, and just to check that they had received the new manuscript, which they had, and according to their records, they had replied pretty much straight away after I'd originally submitted the new manuscript, and saying that they would now happily accept it with the new illustrations, and they just needed my confirmation and reply for the go-ahead. But I never saw that email. It must have gone to the junk folder or just evaporated into cyberspace. I, to this day, have no idea, but I just missed it completely. And so I never emailed them back to say fine. Luckily, we were just within the time frame for a reply. So by the time I then spoke to them again, I got in by the skin of my teeth when we discovered what had happened, and Tatty Cat did finally make the final cut just in time for MABLE 23, but it was so very nearly the book that never happened.
Well, I'm really glad it did. I'm so glad. So what I would like to know about now, if that's okay, is part of the influence for your character for Tatty Cat's personality was based on one of your own cats, who I understand is a bit of an outside adventurer in his own right. Is that good?
Yes, that's right. He's a beautiful little black cat who's always been an adventurer ever since he was a teeny tiny little kitten, wandering off to explore and then calmly returning a few days or maybe even a week or so later, as if nothing was amiss. And I always have wondered where he's been, what he's been up to, what he's doing. Is someone else feeding him? Does he have another home? It didn't seem to matter where we lived either. We've moved house probably about 4 times in the last 12 years or so, and it's always the same pattern. He once went missing for a few months just after our final move. We put missing cat posters up everywhere and no one had seen him, no one came forward, and then out of the blue he just came strolling back in one night around 2 a.m, meowing loudly and demanding food as if nothing had happened, and he never did tell us where he'd been. He's 12 years old now, so he should know better, but he still does it. Now one day I saw an advert for a tracker, a little device that you can fit to your pet's collar that literally tracks them wherever they go. So I thought, well, that's got to be worth a shot. I've been dying to know where he goes, what he does. And I think I literally went online there and then that day and bought the tracker. And it was very enlightening, to say the least. Initially, he just seemed to hang around our little close and our little streets. But then when closer looking at it, it showed that he spent at least 2 nights inside someone else's house, 2 different people's house. I can only assume they must have cat flaps and had probably left food for their own cats lying around, because around about 2 a.m. in he goes into their houses, and there's a little movement wandering about, and then he just settles down and I assume sleeps, because the tracker doesn't move for 3 or 4 hours until dawn, and then off he goes, lets himself out again. The second week of having this tracker, his roaming nature begins to show properly though. Initially with a midnight trip down through the village, and then down to the riverbank, which is about a mile away. And then the following day, we have another journey all the way through the village. And then he crosses the main road, which is slightly terrifying, to get to an old stinky chicken farm, which is probably full of rats and mice and he basically just stays there for 2 days. Then he returns home briefly to refill, eat his food, and then he was off again the next day over the fields at the back of the house this time. And he goes for several miles, 2 villages away, until he reaches a little farm, and there he stays here for about a week. The tracker actually ran out of battery before he came back home. No doubt mousing and ratting to his little heart's content before returning home once again for food and sleep for about a week, and then setting off again a week later. I now know, having had this tracker for a while, that this farm is a firm favourite, and he visits here at least once a month, generally stays for about a week at a time. So with hindsight, no wonder my missing cat posters didn't get any replies, because he wasn't in this village even. He was miles away at this farmyard, I assume, but having the time of his life. So yeah, there we are. And I'm sure the tracker will have a few more surprises in store for me yet. But in the meantime, if he does go missing for any prolonged amount of time, I'm going to have a much better idea of where to look for him now. And he's giving some brilliant ideas for the next Tatty Cat adventures. So thank you.
He sounds like a real adventurer. That's brilliant, because
yes.
yeah, like you say, it'd be great to have new ideas for the next book. And
Yeah,
he
one or
certainly is
two.
helping you
Yep.
there, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yes.
So yeah, that'd be brilliant. I mean, the new book is called Tatty Cat and the Wonderful Whiff by Mella May, and it is published by Fantastic Books. Thank you.
Thank you.
Children's literature is a realm filled with creativity and imagination, and the authors who contribute to it play a significant role in shaping the literary experiences of young readers. It also has a rich tradition of delightful and engaging verse. Think of authors such as A.A. Milne and Dr. Seuss. What we have for you today are 2 talented children's authors, recent arrivals on the children's verse scene. Mella May, just launching her debut book, Tatty Cat and the Wonderful Whiff, will be chatting with Dale Neal, whose first book of verse, My Socks Have Gone Bonkers, was published in 2019. He's since published My Grandad is an Alien. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Mella May and Dale Neal.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi, Mella. You okay today?
Yeah.
Good. This is me. I'm Dale Neal from Fantastic Books Publishing. Not from Fantastic Books Publishing, but I have a book, My Socks Have Gone Bonkers, out with Fantastic Books Publishing, and I'm chatting with Mella, who has a book coming out with fantastic books called Tatty Cat and the
Wonderful Whiff.
And the Wonderful
Yes,
Whiff.
thank you,
Fantastic.
Dale. Yes.
Thanks, Mella. I can't wait to read it, by the way. It sounds, I love the title.
Thank you.
So, how, if you don't mind me asking, a very simple, I'm sure it'll only be, it's quite a long-winded answer, I imagine, but have you had a long writing journey, Mella? Is it something you've always been passionate about that's brought you to this point?
I've always enjoyed writing, always, even a long time ago, even like when I was at school, writing essays. That's probably English was probably my favorite lesson, and I loved writing the essays and the stories. And I was always told I was quite good at it. It was always something that I wanted to do, always. But life kind of got in the way, and I was always working. Then I had children to bring up, and now I've got grandchildren, and it's only really now in my 60s that I've had time to actually try and do it. And it's kind of like this itch that I wanted to scratch. I've always been told you could do it, and I've always sort of thought I could. And I wanted to prove to myself that I actually could do this. So I had a go. I wrote a few things and submitted the Tatty Cat story to Fantastic Books, and they said yes. Wasn't quite that straightforward, but that's the shortened version. So yeah, which was fantastic in itself.
How did it feel when you got that email saying yes, we'd like to publish this?
It was a combination. It was amazing. Also a little bit of unbelief. I think it must be like if somebody tells you won the lottery, that there's this sort of like wow, and also that,
isn't it?
Yeah, are you kidding? You know, is this a wind up? It's also sort of that element of it, but yeah, just like dream come true. But it really, really was. I mean, you must have experienced that yourself, because you've obviously had a book published with Fantastic Books, so you must have had a similar.
Yeah, and because of the way the publishing world works, I realize now, you know, you'll send out, I actually sent off my submission at a time. I just had an operation, and I was in bed for a few days. And I thought, well, it's not as dramatic as it sounds, but thank you. It wasn't anything life-threatening, but so I thought, well, I'd spoken to a friend of mine, Carol Midgley at the time, and she said, yeah, do you like these poems? And she said, I really like these. You should send these off, you know. So I did, and then I think about 6 months went by, and then out of the blue, you get this email saying, "Can you send us more work? And if your manuscript works, then yeah, let's do this." So yeah, it's a wonderful feeling, isn't it?
It's just amazing, isn't it? It's like, I don't know, relief, validation, elation, everything all just mixed. And you sort of go around the rest of the day with a silly little smile on your face, and every so often going back and looking at it again, was that real? Did I read it wrong?
I'll tell you what, if ever you want to spot a mistake in your submission, you can edit it and edit it and edit it, and then you press that submit button, and I guarantee all the mistakes will become instantly apparent. That's the only way to check for sure.
I need neon lights. Yeah.
But moving on to Tatty Cat, where did you get the idea for Tatty Cat?
The actual character of the little cat is, to be honest, it's a kind of combination of two cats that I have personally had the honour to know. One of which, lovely little girl cat, but so scruffy. She looked like a stray. She wasn't. She had a wonderful owner who spent hours grooming her, but the minute you finished grooming, she'd just kind of like shake, and then the whole lot was everywhere again, and she was just constantly scruffy and tatty. So that the whole appearance thing, I think, probably came from there. The adventures that Tatty Cat gets up to, that's one of my cats, and he is a complete adventurer. He's an outdoor cat. You couldn't keep him in if you tried. He has been since he was a kitten, and he goes on all these wonderful adventures. He just used to disappear for days at a time, and we had no idea where he was. It was like, initially it was terrifying, and then you kind of got used to it. Oh, he's just off on one of his little jaunts. And then technology invented like luggage trackers and things, and they now actually have pet trackers. So we're like, let's find out where he goes. So
like a Fitbit kind of when you've been on a jog or something.
Yes,
that'd be fascinating to see.
Yes, we put a collar on him, which he didn't like much, but he got used to the
Tatty
collar.
Cat's
So
travelling.
after a week, we got the tracker and we put it on, and he goes for miles. He goes for miles and miles. Well, I say miles and miles. He goes for about 4 miles. But for a little cat,
That's a significant
4 miles,
distance,
and it's all across country and across. We live in the middle of nowhere. It's all across the country and. But from my point of view, it's a bit more reassuring because should anything happen, which is always my worry, if something would happen and we'd never find him, we know now where he is. So if the tracker stops moving, we're like, there he is. So so a lot of the inspiration came from what I thought he might get up to, where he's been and what I thought a cat might like to get up to. So so that was quite good. And
sorry, go on, Mella.
No, I was going to say the actual story. This one is my partner and I were queuing up for fish and chips, as you do, we were outside queuing up, and this little cat pushed past all these people queuing up outside and went around to the back of the shop, and you could hear this clattering and banging. I still don't know what it was, but in my head, this cat was having the time of his life at the back of a fish and chip shop. So that's basically what the inspiration was, because then you think, wow, what a wonderful place for a cat to be. So yeah.
I can just imagine the illustration, like in an old Beano cartoon when there's a fight ensues and there's a cloud with fists and paws and tails coming out. So this is quite a difficult one. I struggle to answer this sometimes. What's your writing process when you approach a story?
I have a rough idea. I've probably got in my head a beginning, a middle, and an end.
And then you kind of just expand.
And then I'll probably, as I say, in my head, I've got a beginning, a middle, and end. And then I love playing about with words, and I love making things rhyme, and a kind of a rhythm, a bumpity 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 bump. And I think kids like that too. They like the whole da 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 kind of a thing. So I will then take my basic story in my head and try and get some sort of rhyme and rhythm to it. And I actually enjoy doing that. On times it sends me mad, but I do actually enjoy doing that. And maybe a kind of not quite a chorus, but a repeating bit that kids can
do, isn't it? There's a rhythm to it. And
yes.
Like I know that I've said this to you before. To me, I like the discipline of having to write in rhyme. I can't handle the freedom of having every single word at my disposal.
Too much, isn't it?
I find it's like trying to park a car in an empty car park. There's just too many choices.
Exactly.
I
calm this down a bit. I mean, you have to learn a certain discipline, and you have to learn if you want to get certain words in this way of doing it. Like I think we said last time, like don't end a line with orange or purple because you're not going to find a rhyme for that. So get it in somewhere else.
Based on that. I've got something written down as a note somewhere. But from that,
you've actually found a rhyming word. That would impress me.
I thought I'd just put orange in the middle and then just put.
Yeah, that works. You see,
orange doesn't rhyme with anything, but then something. I don't know what it is. But
and then you can work with that. You learn not to put that at the end. So
well, indeed, I was thinking if I'm struggling to find a rhyme, just stick it in the middle and then put something else at the end.
That's what I mean. You play about with the words.
Yeah, but then it's got to avoid sounding forced, doesn't it? It's like saying, "So let's do this," was what he said. That doesn't work.
Yeah, you've got to try and get that flow going, and hopefully when you can do that, it's sort of like, yes, I did it. And you do
I've just written a story called "I Fell in Love with a Headless Zombie," and it started off, and it's terrible when it's terrible, but when I look at how it started with filler words and lines and gaps, and now when it's finished, I'm so happy with it. And friends, and I sent it to my friend Mark, who does the illustrations, and even he said it's the best thing you've ever written, and I'm just so happy with that. But it's the process, isn't it? If I had sent this anywhere, even 2 weeks ago, I'd have been so upset that I'd sent it out like that, having seen what it's like when it's finished. And then don't you? Somebody said once, you never finish a poem, you just abandon it, and that's a kind of.
I think you get it. You get it till you're happy with it. when you
Yeah.
can sort of, yes, that I wouldn't be ashamed of that. That's okay. I'm happy with that. I mean, you could
Yeah.
always tweak. You could tweak with it
Oh, yeah.
forevermore, I think, and that would
Yeah.
probably not be good. But
Yeah.
also,
But-
I mean, I have my friend George, who his illustrations they make the book. I mean, literally, I couldn't have done it without him. I did initially submit my story with just some little sketches, and they're like, yeah, we like the story, but you need to work on the illustrations. And I'm like,
right.
I draw. So George, bless his heart, he's done these wonderful, wonderful illustrations that just bring it to life. As simple as that. As I'm sure your friend Mark does the same. They bring it to life.
Yeah.
It's symbiotic, isn't it? You need,
yeah. Because I'd worked with other illustrator friends and things like that. But Mark being a friend of mine, last time I'd spoke to Mark personally, he was still working in the UK. I didn't realise he'd gone on to these great things in America.
Oh wow!
In on him, and he was working on the Hulk. But the good thing about Mark is that he's got that American work ethic where I'll say, "What about a sketch for this?" Within 2 hours, he's got something back, you know. And it's just
oh my goodness,
great.
Yeah. I mean, I think George took a bit longer than that.
I mean,
but to be fair, he was doing it as a favour.
It'll take longer than that, really. But yeah, it's great. We'll get on so well. So, yeah.
We didn't know where this was going to go or if it was going to go anywhere, so he just did it as a favour. So it took a bit longer.
And when can sorry, Mel, I crossed over you there. When can we expect to see Tatty Cat?
I think it's coming out in the autumn. I don't have an actual date, but it'll be autumn this year, 2023. So yeah, watch this space.
Wonderful. Could you possibly read us a few lines?
I could I'll just do a little bit. Okay, right. So we'll do the beginning bit. The wind was up, the breeze was strong, the clouds of grey were scudding along. Tatty Cat stretched and sniffed the air and breathed in a whiff, so faint and rare, a wonderful whiff that was wafting his way. A wonderful whiff, ho, hip, hip, hooray! A wonderful whiff, oh boy, a wonderful whiff, oh joy, oh joy. Standing quite still, his nose all a quiver, Tatty Cat swayed and began to shiver. Trembling with joy, he jumped to his toes and ran like the wind to follow his nose. Where was that whiff that was wafting along? That amazing aroma, that most pungent pong. He just had to find it, that much was plain, or that fabulous fragrance would drive him insane. There you go.
I can't wait to read it now.
Thank
fantastic.
You. And I think we should hear some of yours.
Well, I can do no better than read the eponymous titled "My Socks Have Gone Bonkers."
Yep.
Let's have a look. I've got it here. I actually did a school visit recently, and I gave my last copy of My Socks Have Gone Bonkers to the school. So I need to order some more of the copies. Excuse me. My socks have gone bonkers, completely insane. They went for a walk on their own in the rain. They walked through the door while soaking wet through, leaving marks on the floor in a size 42. My socks have gone loco. I'm really quite vexed. I really don't know what they're going to do next. One stands at ease while the other starts prancing. I've not seen these moves on Strictly Come Dancing. I bought them on eBay, a tenner a pack. They've all gone astray and I can't get them back. I knew from the way that they leapt out the box that these really were the must wear with the socks. One's in the drawer, one's in the latrine. There's 2 or 3 more in the washing machine. One's in the shed, one's under my bed. There's one in the bread bin and one on my head. My socks have gone crackers, like crispier Ivitas, like my Uncle Peter's unhinged order eaters. They rode the Big Dipper with my Auntie Pippa's flippity-gibbity monster feet slippers. My socks have gone bonkers. I'm getting the blues. They javed on YouTube to 1 billion views. My socks have gone leapy. It's really bad news. And between you and me, so have my shoes.
That's brilliant. Thanks,
I read
Dale.
that wrong actually. I read a line wrong there, but you get the
I thought it was brilliant. Thank you for that. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Well, it's been really nice to speak with you, Mella. It's been an absolute pleasure to be introduced to you as well. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
It's been lovely to meet you.
Thank you, and I hope to speak to you again soon in the future.
Yes,
and
you
let's
too.
look forward to maybe a sequel down the line.
Yeah, and best of luck with your headless zombie.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tatty Cat and the Wonderful Whiff by Mella May, illustrated by George Utton. Now, I've had the opportunity to read Tatty Cat and the Wonderful Whiff to both a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old on separate occasions. Both times it went down brilliantly. They fixated on different things, but it was a riot both times. It's a gem of a book. It's filled with those easy rhymes that young children absolutely love. And George Utton's illustrations are a delight. Tatty Cat is truly tatty, and the whiff is wonderfully whiffy. In the book, Tatty Cat is on a mission to find the source of the wonderful whiff. But things don't go according to plan. Enough said, no spoilers. If you want a downside, it's that you'll have to read it again and again and again. But it's wonderful to see a young child getting absorbed in a book and discovering the delights of reading. And when one of my little reading buddies realised that what was a wonderful whiff for Tatty Cat was actually an awful stink for us humans, it was the last word in hilarity. And you know how infectious laughter can be, especially from young children. We all ended up pretty much helpless. Tatty Cat and the Wonderful Whiff by Mella May, illustrated by George Utton. I recommend it.